All right, everyone. Welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. We're going to be jumping into something that's causing quite a stir online. Meta's decided to say bye-bye to its independent fact-checking program.
Big change.
Huge.
Yeah.
And they're going all in on this thing called community notes.
Yeah, pretty wild, right? I mean, we're talking about Meta, the company behind Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. They're basically putting the power to decide what's true or not in the hands of, well, all of us, the users.
Exactly. For almost a decade, they've been relying on these expert fact-checkers.
Mm-hmm.
Those folks were certified by the International Fact-Checking Network. We're talking like the IFCN,
Yeah.
to basically be the truth police. They'd look at content, decide how accurate it is.
Rate it.
Rate it, yep. And Meta would then be like, okay, this stuff is bogus. We got to limit how many people see it, or slap a big old warning label on it.
The whole system really ramped up after the 2016 U.S. elections, right? All that talk about foreign interference, fake news going viral, it was a big deal.
Right. But now Meta's saying, hold up, even experts can be biased.
They're basically saying the system was broken, even with certified people checking the facts.
Which makes you wonder, what's the real story here?
Hmm.
So they're saying, hey, let's trust the wisdom of the crowd instead of just a few experts.
Yeah, the classic crowdsourcing approach, but is it really going to work better? Because the IFCN, those folks who were certifying the fact checkers, they are not happy about this. They're pushing back hard. They're like, hey, our people follow strict rules. They're all about impartiality.
Yeah, it makes you think maybe there's more to this story. Some folks are saying this is Meta trying to dodge accusations of, censoring certain viewpoints.
Especially conservative viewpoints. It's been a hot topic.
Definitely a lot of political baggage there. Okay, so let's break this down. How do these community notes even work? I know Twitter, or, well, X now, has been doing something similar for a while, right?
Yeah, the basic idea is the same. So picture this. You're scrolling through Facebook, you see a post, and something about it just feels off. Maybe it's a wild claim or a statistic that seems way too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
You can flag that post like, hey, someone needs to check this out.
Okay, I'm reporting it.
Right. And then other users can jump in. They can add notes with context, sources, links to articles, anything that helps clarify what's going on.
So it's not just me saying, I think this is fake. It's like I'm starting a conversation.
Exactly. It's about adding information, not just opinions. But here's the catch. Those notes you add, they don't just appear for everyone to see.
Oh.
Nope. They only become visible if enough other users are like, yep, this note is helpful, this adds important context.
Okay, so there's some kind of system to prevent trolls from just messing everything up.
Exactly. They've got this voting thing in place. Only the notes that a bunch of users agree on actually get shown.
Smart.
And there are safeguards, too. You can't just create a fake account and start voting like crazy. You need to have, a well-established account, a verified phone number, stuff that makes it harder for people to manipulate the system.
That makes sense. But what if, say, a whole group of people with the same agenda decides to gang up and, flood the system with biased notes?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. That's where this fancy thing they call the bridging algorithm comes into play.
Bridging algorithm sounds complicated.
It's designed to prevent one group from dominating the conversation, to keep things diverse.
How would they do that?
Basically, this algorithm looks at who's agreeing on notes. It's like, have these people disagreed on other notes in the past?
So if I always agree with people who think like me, my vote doesn't count as much.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
The system prioritizes votes from folks who are open to different viewpoints.
Interesting. So they're trying to break us out of our echo chambers.
At least that's the idea.
Definitely sounds like Meta's trying hard to make this whole thing fair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've got this other feature, too. It's called the Needs Your Help tab. Basically, it highlights topics where they need more input from people with, different opinions.
Okay, so it's not just about weeding out bad info. It's about making sure there's a good mix of perspectives.
Exactly. They're trying to be proactive about encouraging balance. Which is good, because all this sounds pretty theoretical right now.
Yeah, it's all well and good in theory, but did they actually think this through? I mean, this whole community notes thing, it only officially launched for Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, a week ago, January 7th?
Yeah, super recent.
It's early days.
Yeah.
We'll see how it actually plays out in the wild.
Oh, absolutely. Tapping into collective intelligence to fight misinformation, it's an interesting idea, no doubt. But there are some potential downsides we need to talk about.
Oh, yeah, what if this whole thing backfires?
Right. And those downsides, that's what we're going to dig into next. I mean, right off the bat, you got to worry about manipulation, right?
Yeah, how do you stop people from gaming the system?
Exactly. Think about it. A group gets together, they've got an agenda, they could easily coordinate, flag posts they don't like, and then bam, flood the system with bias notes.
So, like, even with the bridging algorithm and all those checks, a really determined group could still find a way to mess things up. I feel like we've seen that happen before on, like, every social media platform.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge concern. And the bigger the platform, the more users they have, the harder it gets to stop that kind of stuff.
It's like Meta's got to be constantly one step ahead of the bad guys, always updating their algorithms and stuff.
It's a constant battle, for sure.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, are they really ready for this?
Like, do they have the resources to actually make this work? I mean, fact-checking, especially at Meta's scale, that's a massive undertaking. You need tons of people looking at tons of content all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And they're basically asking everyday users to do what trained fact checkers with all their resources were already struggling to do.
Yeah, and let's be real. Most people are on Facebook to, like, fact-check everything they see.
Right. They're there to connect with friends, share funny cat videos, catch up on the news.
Not to play detective and debunk conspiracy theories. It's a
This.
lot to ask of people.
Yeah.
And even if someone wants to help out, wouldn't they need some kind of, I don't know, expertise to actually figure out what's true and what's not?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's not always clear cut, especially with all those deep fakes and stuff going around.
Yeah, those things are getting scarily good.
Right. Figuring out what's real and what's fake takes skill. You got to know how to research, how to evaluate sources. And that's not something everyone knows how to do.
Nope. And then you have the whole bias thing. We all have our own biases. It's just human nature.
Oh, totally.
So how do we, like, separate our own opinions from, actually judging whether something is true or not?
That's the tough part. Confirmation bias is a real thing. We tend to believe things that already fit with what we think, even if they're not actually true.
Right. So in a system where people are rating each other's notes, you could end up in this weird feedback loop, just reinforcing everyone's existing biases.
Exactly, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose, right? It's like instead of getting a broader perspective, you just end up in an even bigger echo chamber.
Yeah, not exactly what Meta's going for. And this brings up another issue. A lot of complex topics, they don't fit neatly into, like, a short little note.
Oh, I know. It's like social media wants everything to be quick and simple, but real life is messy, right?
It's like trying to sum up, I don't know, the entire history of the universe in a tweet. You're going to miss some important details.
For sure. Proper fact-checking takes time, it takes research, it takes considering all sides of an issue.
And I'm just not sure a bunch of random notes from users is going to cut it.
It's a gamble, for sure. And then what about all the stuff that requires real expertise, like scientific claims, medical advice?
Are they expecting everyday users to be able to debunk that kind of stuff? It seems risky, right?
It does. Especially when you're dealing with information that could, like, actually harm people if it's wrong.
It's a big responsibility. I also wonder what this means for people who were really relying on Meta's fact-checking, like journalists, researchers, people trying to fight misinformation in their fields.
Right. They've lost a tool that they depended on.
Yeah, maybe community notes will fill that gap, maybe not. It's too soon to tell.
We'll have to see how it plays out and whether people actually trust it.
Yeah.
Whether they see it as neutral and reliable. Because right now, what we have is a brand new system. It's got potential, sure, but it also has some serious drawbacks.
Drawbacks that might be impossible to avoid completely.
It's a big experiment, betting on the wisdom of the crowd, but there's no guarantee it's going to work.
Okay, so even if community notes works perfectly, even if all the notes are accurate and balanced and everything, are we still kind of missing the bigger picture here?
Yeah.
Because misinformation, it doesn't just live on Facebook or Instagram.
Right. It's everywhere. It's on all sorts of websites. It's in apps. It's even in, real life conversations.
It's like Meta's trying to fix their little corner of the internet, but what about the rest of it?
That's the thing. This is what they call a walled garden solution.
Walled garden.
Yeah, it only works within Meta's platforms. It can't follow misinformation that jumps to, like, Twitter or Reddit or any other site.
So even if they get their own house in order, that doesn't solve the bigger problem.
It's like playing whack-a-mole,
Yeah.
You get rid of it in one place, it pops up somewhere else.
Exactly. And that brings up a really important question, like, what does all this mean for us as individuals? So if community notes is kind of like this little bubble of truth within Meta's world, what does that mean for us out here in the, like, wild west of the internet?
It means we got to be even more careful. Like, we can't just sit back and expect someone else to tell us what's true and what's not.
We've got to be our own fact checkers.
Pretty much. We got to be active. We got to think critically. We got to be skeptical, especially online.
Okay, so practical tips here. How do we do that? how we navigate this new world where everyone's kind of like a part-time fact
Yeah.
checker.
First thing, pay attention to those community notes. The next time you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, you see that little flag, don't just ignore it.
Don't just keep scrolling.
Right, stop, take a second, actually read what it says. Ask yourself, does this information make sense? Where's it coming from? Does it seem balanced, or is it pushing a specific agenda?
It's like we need to learn how to read these notes like they're their own language.
I like that community note literacy.
That's what we need.
Exactly. It's not just about reading the original post. It's about reading the notes about the post, thinking critically about the context they're adding. And don't be afraid to, go deeper. If a note raises questions for you, do your own research, follow those links, see if the information checks out.
So it's not about blindly trusting the notes. It's more like they're a starting point.
Exactly. They can be helpful. They can point you in the right direction, but you got to use your own judgment too.
Got it. But what about all the times we see stuff online that just seems like wrong or misleading, but there are no community notes? What do we do then?
Don't just scroll past it. If you have the time, flag it. You can even add your own note, like, hey, this seems fishy. Here's some evidence to back it up.
So we can actually like participate in the fact checking.
That's right. The more people contribute good notes, the better the system gets, the more helpful it is for everyone.
It's kind of like we're all working together to build this wall against misinformation.
That's a great way to think about it. And even if you don't have time to write notes, you're still part of the system. Just by reading those notes, thinking about them, you're shaping how you see the information, you're shaping the online landscape.
So we all have a responsibility here, even if we don't realize it.
We do. And it matters. Misinformation, it's not just some abstract problem. It affects real life. It affects elections, public health, relationships, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, this deep dive has really made me think it's not just about Meta and their decisions. It's about the future of truth online.
It's a big deal. And it's been great talking about it with you. Hopefully our listeners are feeling a little more, I don't know, informed, maybe even a little empowered.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about. The big takeaway for me is we can't just passively consume information anymore. We got to be active, curious, and question everything.
Well said. This whole online world is constantly changing. We got to stay informed. We got to adapt. And we got to keep asking those tough questions.
So true. Well, this has been another deep dive, folks. If you found this conversation helpful, do us a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends. The more people we can reach with this information, the better equipped we'll be to face these challenges together. Thanks for listening.